Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows, while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away. Hello everyone, welcome back to our pod.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. We just had some technical difficulties and we just started the episode over and we're good now.
Yeah, luckily it was only about 30 seconds in.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Ha 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 ha. Luckily. I don't think he would say luckily.
Oh,
but
maybe she... Well, you never know.
Never know. Maybe he just wanted to get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started talking about this a second ago, and then we had to start the episode over, but it feels like it's been a minute since we last recorded.
Yeah, it's been a while, because I left Sunday. It is Saturday, and I was gone Sunday to Wednesday night. Then I had to go to Tulane, and then Friday I was just super busy, and then you worked last night and this morning, and here we are.
Yes, I believe we last recorded on last Friday night.
Okay.
I think that may have been it.
Yeah, it had to have been.
Because we were both going a little stir crazy by the end of it. So yeah, we are here starting off. Well, no, we're not starting off. Wow, I need to stop being so tired. We are continuing. There's the word I was trying to say. We are continuing February with short-lived TV shows, and we're doing a show that I think we maybe watched the first episode when it first aired, and then just kind of, just looking at when this was, October 20th, 2019, I had just gotten my car.
Oh, yeah. It was like literally, because it was like your B-Day. I had just gotten my car.
Yep.
I had broken down on the interstate going to check on my mom.
All right.
And I was quite literally in Metairie on I-10, and my car stopped. Just stopped.
Yeah.
I hadn't done anything and it stopped. And thankfully I had enough oomph to pull over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so I got a new car that day, and then the next couple of days you had an issue coming back from work yourself.
Yeah. I had gotten before that I had gotten a flat on the interstate. And the type of car that I had, because of the certain year and the type of car it had a very hard-to-find tire that I was constantly having issues with trying to find a tire for this car. And the tires for it, because it was a small car, the tires for it were, really cheap. But it was never available anywhere. I always had to, specially order it, and it was very extra. And then the car just started to crap out. I think it finally just crapped out, and you were like, let's just get you a new car. And I was like, okay, because I had only been at my new job for a few months, so I was finally financially being like, okay, well I can pay off a car, which I only have 8 payments left. So I just looked at that actually today.
Awesome.
Really interesting. I'm sure everyone listening.
But that's a big deal, especially because was this your very first ever new car, or your second?
This was my second. The blue car that I had before was my first new car. It was a year old when I had it. But but it had been, take that back, it had been driven by someone before, so it was technically used.
Right.
But this car that I have is brand new.
Yes.
When I got it.
Yes.
It's in great condition.
It's you don't drive too much.
Strictly a commuter car. It's to work and back. Go get gas, go get groceries, go get something to eat. I think I've driven it to Biloxi a couple times. I've driven it to New Orleans a couple times, and that's it. It's a great car. I love it. So we are continuing February with short-lived TV shows. This has been a pretty fun month with the shows that we've watched. I know we're only on our second episode right now, but I really have been liking all the shows. We still have one left to watch, so maybe we should watch that tonight.
But
let's do it. We we are judging the pilot. I'm sorry, I'm very tired. We are judging the pilot of a show called Watchmen.
Yeah.
And it was a HBO series. It was, it only lasted, like 9 episodes. It's based on a graphic novel series called Watchmen. And there was a film in 2009 that came out. And it had Jackie Earle Haley, and I believe Carla Gugino was in it.
Oh, okay.
I'm like almost positive. I'm almost positive. Yeah, he played Rorschach, and she played. I don't know the characters' names, other than from the Jeopardy episode where they reference it. Ozymandias, and Dr. Manhattan. Those are the only names I know.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we. I think we both really enjoyed this one, and we'll get into that in just a second, but. Before we do all that, Anna's going to give us some episode and series information.
All right. Watchmen, the pilot, was called It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice. Watchmen was an American superhero drama that premiered on HBO on October 20th, 2019, and ended on December 15th, 2019, after 1 season and 9 episodes. The series was created by Damon Lindelof, who wrote and produced shows like Crossing Jordan and Lost. Lindelof also wrote the pilot, and it was directed by Nicole Castle. Castle had previously directed for shows like The Killing, The Americans, and The Following. Watchmen, the series, serves as a sequel to the DC comic book series of the same name written by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. The series takes place 34 years after the events of the comic book series, within the same alternate reality, and focuses on events surrounding the racist violence in present-day Tulsa, Oklahoma. A white supremacist group known as 7th Cavalry has declared war against the police department, causing police officers to wear masks as to not reveal their true identities. Detective Angela Abar, also known as Sister Night, begins to investigate a string of murders that are seemingly connected to the 7th Cavalry. The cast of this series grows throughout the season, so we will just say the cast of this episode includes Regina King as Detective Angela Abar, also known as Sister Night, Don Johnson as Tulsa Chief of Police Judd Crawford.
Don Johnson being in this was so random.
Yeah. Tim Blake Nelson as Detective Wade Tillman, also known as Looking Glass.
Love that guy.
I love him. Yahya Abdul Mateen II as Cal Abar, Angela's husband. Andrew Howard as Red Scare, another Tulsa detective. Jacob Ming Trent as Panda, a detective that wears a giant panda mask. Tom Meissen and Sarah Vickers as the mysterious Mr. Phillips and Ms. Crookshanks. Dylan Schambing as Topher Abar, Angela and Cal's adopted son. Louis Gossett Jr. as Will Reeves, and Jeremy Irons is only referred to as the blonde man in the episode. Watchmen would go on to win 11 Primetime Emmys in 2020. The show was praised for its top-tier cast and writing. HBO wanted to continue the series, but Lindelof said that he wouldn't return and felt that he told the story as he wanted to, so the series was canceled and then retroactively rebranded as a limited series. You can currently watch the series on Max.
How crazy is that? That they're like...
It was, because I remember when this came out, and I think, did we watch... the first episode?
We watched the first.
Yes.
We watched the first episode, and I think Alicia told us to keep watching. I think it was Alicia that kept telling us to watch it.
And I feel like we just forgot about it for some reason, and we meant to come back to it, and then all of a sudden it was canceled. And then I think we might have thought, well, then it was just bad, or something.
Maybe,
but I don't think we knew that he just felt like the story was told and it ended. But yeah.
So what did? Before we get into the plot summary, sometimes we don't talk about this, sometimes we do, sometimes we have so much to talk about, but sometimes we forget to talk about the episode itself. What did you think of the pilot?
Well, of course, it's hard because it's obviously dealing a lot with racism and stuff like that. So I just remember while we were watching it, it was a struggle to see all of that happening.
Right.
So, and particularly since it was based on like the Tulsa massacre, which really happened.
Yeah.
So
the beginning that opening scene was pretty rough.
Yes. So that, it's kind of like when people say, like, for, John Grisham's movie, A Time to Kill, you got to get over, like, that beginning part. Like, you got to get over that.
Yeah.
To keep going. And so, yes.
And it's such an incredible book. Yeah.
Yeah. Not that they're any way related,
No.
but I'm just comparing because, like, the beginning scene of that movie is rough, and just like this was. So, yeah, I liked it, and I don't know why we didn't keep watching it back in 2019. Maybe we were busy getting new cars or something.
Too busy getting new cars, and I don't remember anything before COVID.
Yeah,
especially those months leading up to it.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot going on.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
I mean, I no surprise. I mean, like, I was really interested in this, and I want to keep watching.
We only have 8 episodes to watch, so
right. I loved the movie. It's the movie is really long, and it's you kind of have to, like, it goes on, like you would say, it went on a little too long, and as good as it is, it's like it's hard for me to get into. But when it's done in a episodic like this, it's just so much easier to, like, keep my attention for 45 minutes at a time, rather than watch like a 3-hour unrated director's cut of Watchmen, which I would still watch, I'm just saying. But so speaking of comic books and such, I mean, it's kind of crazy because they're not as prominent as they used to be. I feel like there was a time where Marvel was just everywhere and DC was just everywhere, and it seems to have, like, teetered out over the years. But there's still a big place in my heart for, like, comic book movies and comic book TV shows, just because, I mean, I've loved them for so long, and I remember watching, like, the X-Men cartoons and watching, like, the Spider-Man and Batman the Animated Series and all of that. And so, like, I'll always have, like, a special place in my heart for all these comic book movies and stuff. Do you have, like, any favorite comic book movies or TV shows?
Yes, I do.
Well, tell me.
So mine kind of goes way back. So I don't know if this technically counts as a comic book series. I'm going to say it does for my purposes. But Mad Magazine,
okay.
It's obviously just more of a magazine than a comic book, like, story.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, like, one of the very first kind of comics magazines, and my dad always bought it for me. I think he thought they were funny, and so but the other ones that I probably got when I was little were Archie comics.
Oh, okay.
And so that Betty and Veronica, you just were always like, which one do you want to be? Do you want to be Betty, the, like, cute, sweet, like, girly, but, the kind of wholesome one, or do you want to be Veronica, like the voluptuous hubba beautiful chick? So, I don't know. So those were probably the first kind of comic books that I remember. Obviously, things like Spider-Man, Superman, Batman in comic book form, I don't really remember ever getting those. I do know that my brother did, though, because he grew up very much in that era, and it was probably something my mom could have afforded to get him, because I'm sure they were probably like a nickel or something, and she could afford to get him 1 or 2 a month as part of, like, treats for him.
Yeah.
But so I do remember him having those, like, when I was little, it was something he would talk about and reference, and those were probably my early exposures to, DC comics and things like that. But then I will say you introduced me to something that I actually really, really enjoyed watching with you, and that is Comic Book Men from Kevin Smith.
Wow.
So, because I feel like there is just that world of people that love comic books, and it's gonna talk about, there's just like an infinite world of comic books, and there are,
there's something for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It can be just like a regular like Archie comics, just like the local high school kids, or they can be superheroes or
horror comics.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that show really introduced me, not that I went out and bought comic books, but just how diverse and expansive there are in the comic book world, and how crazy people are still to this day for them. And so I love that show, and I didn't really know much about comic books when you showed it to me, and we just love it because of Kevin Smith. So
I mean, like with Comic Book Men, there were things that I knew, but I think that there were a lot of like not pop culture, but like culture type things that I wasn't aware of. Like I didn't know what bronies were. I didn't know about I didn't know about the My Little Pony fascination. I had no idea that people were still obsessed with My Little Pony, and like there were these conventions just for My Little Pony, and I like had no idea. And I love the episode where they all go dressed up as different Little Ponies. It's a really funny episode, and Comic Book Man, God, that's a good pull. Because I didn't even think about that. Because it wasn't just comic books. It was like memorabilia that people would bring in, and it brought back memories for you, brought back memories for me when they would bring in toys that like you hadn't even thought of since 1975 or something like that, and things I hadn't thought of since the 90s. And
I love when they would bring in stuff. And I was like, oh, my God, my brother had that. Like the Rock'em Sock'em, boxing game, the blue and the red and the yellow ring. And I was like, when my mom passed away and we pulled that out of the attic, I mean, it was destroyed. I mean, there was like no value to the one my brother used to have. But it was just crazy how much people will pay for this stuff still. And it was interesting to note that they did not like things like baseball cards. Yeah. Because, and I loved their reasoning behind it, or like any kind of cards that came in a packet that were sealed that you could not see. And their reasoning was that you had no choice in what you got. Whereas with a comic book, at least you could touch it and at least open it and see it and make the decision whether or not you wanted to read that story. But the packet was a surprise to you, and you did not know what was in it. And I was like, I never thought about it that way. And I loved learning of hearing that, like, that concept from them. Yeah. And, I just love all those guys. I think they're funny.
I love their banter. I love their back and forth. Yeah. And they all make fun of each other, just like friends do. And oh, yeah.
Well, what about you? What are some of your favorite comic books, comic book movies, TV?
Well, there's a lot of them. So my favorite, I don't remember when I specifically started reading comics. They were just kind of always around because, like you said, they were, cheaper than a book to get at the drugstore or something. For my mom would be like, hey, this is $1 here, read this. And I remember reading Venom. I remember thinking Venom was really cool and Venom was funny, but it was like really dark humor, and I really enjoyed it. And then I think that's why I love the movies so much. I know the Tom Hardy movies don't get a whole lot of attention and a whole lot of love. I think there's a very specific audience for Venom, and I'm that audience. I absolutely love those movies. He is so good. The fact that he also does the voice of Venom is even cooler. And so my favorite comic book character is probably the Flash. I did watch the TV show, the current TV show. Well, it's not current anymore. It's over. But I did watch that TV show for I would say about 75, like 3/4 of the run. I watched a lot of it. It just, like any epic type TV series, after 5 or 6 seasons, it's like, okay, like you're kind of just repeating the same things. Oh, yeah. And it's the same problem with a different mask on, basically. And it was kind of always like, okay, we finally solved this problem, but now this new problem is here, and it's the season finale, so you're not going to know until next season what the next problem is, like that kind of thing, like that kind of cliffhanger. But I love the Flash. I always feel like, at least earlier, I feel like superheroes are always kind of thought of in a like Superman or Batman way, just very like stoic and very like I hate to say bland. I don't mean it in an insulting way, but just very kind of like stoic, serious, kind of introverted, brooding, I guess is a good word. But then you had characters like the Flash and Spider-Man who were they had their one-liners. They were really funny. They had personality. Barry was always a very comical character, and Tom Holland has done a great job of making Peter Parker kind of a funny character that he was in the comic books. And as much as I love Tobey Maguire, he was just like, hey, be a nerd, that's Spider-Man. That's kind of how I felt Tobey Maguire did it. No offense, I love those movies too. Not the third one. I love the first two. Yeah, the third one's insane.
The third one was is Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Topher
Grace.
Yeah, that one was insane.
Oh, yeah, that one was...
That was unhinged.
Yeah.
But if we're talking like kind of in the Marvel universe, I mean, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. They're all the best, and I remember watching the first one with you, and you had never seen it, and you were just like, you loved it. And then I think right after that, the second one came out, and then we went and saw the second one in theaters.
Yes.
And then we recently saw the third one in theaters, and you had to go to the bathroom during the best part of the movie.
Why do you remind me?
Because I was sitting there crying. I'm like, I can't believe Anna is missing this part.
It was like literally 20 seconds I might have been in the bathroom, and all like the best part happened. I was like, what the hell?
It was a great movie though. Yeah, I love Doctor Strange. I loved the Avengers movies when they kind of became like the full Avengers, when it was like Captain America Civil War, when it was like everyone was there. I really liked it like that and on. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. I love the Black Panther movies. The first Black Panther is such a great movie. Such a great cast. Michael B. Jordan, Daniel Kaluuya, such an amazing cast.
So I don't know if this counts for me, but growing up, for me, the TV show that was probably most iconic was Super Friends.
Okay.
Was like the Hall of Justice. It was all the DC people. So that was the one I grew up with. Yeah. I mean, so that was the one I really grew up with. And what taught me Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman, all of the DC people. So, yeah.
All right. So, talk about something that we've kind of talked about before. I don't remember what episode it was where we kind of talked about our run-ins with the law. This is all about police and you know, all of that, and, you know, the authorities and quote unquote the man. Do you have any stories of interacting with cops where, I mean, you don't have to necessarily have been like arrested, but something a little bit, I don't know.
Well, did I tell the story about my friends during Mardi Gras when they got taken to Orleans Parish Prison during Mardi Gras? Did I ever tell you that story?
I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll tell it.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say their names.
Okay.
But
I don't think you have.
Okay, so when I was in college, people always came to my house for Mardi Gras. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you've been to my house. It's nothing fancy. It was just like everyone would sleep in sleeping bags or on couches or in whatever bed was available. It was my mom's house, my parents' house. And so one year, another sorority sister, her parents purchased a timeshare downtown New Orleans, and it was right on the parade route for all the big weekend before Mardi Gras parades, like Endymion, Bacchus.
Right.
Orpheus didn't exist at the time, but so the two big ones before Mardi Gras. Well, she invited everyone to stay at her parents' new timeshare.
Okay.
And so everyone thought it was really cool, which I don't deny. Staying downtown New Orleans is pretty amazing. And so they all decided that they wanted to stay there for Mardi Gras weekend and not come to my mom's house instead. So I was like, all right, I'll admit I was a little upset, and I felt kind of like dissed because they were going to the fancy condo timeshare and not wanting to stay at my mom's house. Well, so I decided then, like, let them go and experience, Mardi Gras with her and her family. And, I had decided, like, I wasn't going to go and hang out with them and, just whatever. So then on Sunday of Mardi Gras, the day after Endymion, one of my sorority sisters called me and she started with the line of, guess who got arrested last night?
Uh-oh.
And I was like, oh my God, like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, just guess. So I started with who I thought would have been arrested, of like my girlfriend sorority group who were like the rowdiest or who got like the drunkest. Not them. So then I just started going down the line of like progressively less wild through the list. And so finally I get to like the last two girls who were like the sweetest, shyest, like actually, and in reality, like smallest, short girls. And I say their names and she's like, yep, they were picked up, put in a paddy wagon, and taken down to central booking in Orleans Parish. And I was like, what happened? And so there is like really one rule you need to know during Mardi Gras. If a cop tells you to do something, you do it.
Gotcha.
Like, there's no arguing with a cop during Mardi Gras. They have enough stuff to deal with. And I'm going to assume between the tragic events of New Year's Eve, the Super Bowl, and Mardi Gras, the New Orleans cops this year are not going to be any better. Like they have to be. It's crazy. So they were on Canal Street, and on parade days, barricades are put up. So like there are these like gated barriers between you and the floats. It's for your safety, and obviously they're up there for a reason. Well, I guess the two girls needed to go to the bathroom, and like really the only place to go was like a Burger King or a Popeyes that was across the street. I guess they didn't think about walking back to the condo, which is crazy because I know where they were and they could have walked back to the condo, or maybe I don't remember exactly where they were, but wherever they wanted to get to, they had to cross a barricade.
Okay.
And the cops were like, no, the parade is coming. And they were like, we can look down the street, like we don't even see a float. We don't even, and he was like, the parade is coming, the barricades are up. Because at a certain point, they make you stop like being able to walk across the street.
Gotcha.
And so he was like, go back to that side of the street and stay there. And they just started arguing with him. Big mistake.
Yeah.
So the cop and another cop took them and put them in the paddy wagon, or whatever you want to call it, like the van or the bus of people they were taking to lock up. But here's the thing. No one saw them getting picked up by the cops because they had walked away from the group a little bit.
Gotcha.
So the parade comes, and mind you, a New Orleans parade, especially like Endymion, can last like 3 hours.
Yeah.
The parade ends, and all the girls are together, and they're like, where are so-and-so and so-and-so? And they were like, oh, well, they probably walked back to the condo. So they go back to the condo. They're not there. And they're just sort of all like collecting themselves going, wait a minute, has anyone seen them in like the past 4 hours? And everyone started realizing that they hadn't seen them at all. So they all go back out, including my friend's parents, and they all start just walking the streets of downtown. The parade's over, and they're just walking Canal Street, Magazine, Tchoupitoulas, and they cannot find them. They all start freaking out, like especially my friend's parents even, because one of the things my mom used to do, and anyone listening who ever has stayed at our house during college knows, my mom would always write our phone number on a piece of paper, make us stick it somewhere in our bra or in our sock, and give us a quarter. Yes, we used to have to go to payphones. Back in the day, there were no cell phones. And she always made sure we had a way to call her if we ever got separated. They had not done that. So they were in central lockup with no phone number and no way to contact anyone. And both of them were so scared of calling their parents.
Right.
Like they didn't call their parents. So they had just stayed there. And so I think my sorority sister's parents were like calling the hospitals to see if anyone had been brought there. Nothing. So I think they finally decided to call the police.
Yeah.
I mean, it had been like a couple hours, maybe by this point it was like 2 a.m. because the parades downtown ended around 10 or 11 at night. So I think it was probably around like 1 or 2 in the morning, and they finally called the police, and they were like, oh yeah, they're here. They're in like a holding cell. Like, so they hadn't gone and gotten booked or anything yet. I don't know all the processes.
So were they just put like in the drunk tank and they were just going to get released in the morning, or
I guess until like,
because it doesn't sound like they did anything worthy of like a hearing or anything.
Right. No,
yeah.
I think they were just in a holding cell just to like teach them a lesson or some sort of like, don't talk back to the police during Mardi Gras. So when my sorority sister's parents went to pick them up, because they were at least 18. I don't really know the processes of getting out of like jail or lockup, when you're 18 for, talking back to a police officer.
Yeah.
They apparently both got like really sick. They were like throwing up. They were so nervous about calling their parents, and I guess their parents ended up coming to get them. And I just remember after that, when we all got back to Monroe, both of them were like, that is what we got for dissing you and not wanting to stay at your mom's house and wanting to stay at the fancy house. And I'm like, no, that's not why that happened.
Right.
It happened because you talked back to a police officer.
Right.
She's like, no,
it would have
like,
happened. Same thing would have happened had they been staying with you.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I said, the difference is you would have had my mom's phone number
Right.
and a quarter to call her. But I just was like, yes, that is a big lesson. Anyone listening to this, if you come to New Orleans, come for the Super Bowl. Well, this might already be over with, but Mardi Gras still going. Do not talk back to police officers. Have a plan. Obviously, we all have cell phones these days, and we all have each other's numbers, but it doesn't hurt to have a friend that is maybe not at Mardi Gras to be able to contact for help if you need it, and someone nearby or somebody that can help you. But I think that was probably one of my like early lessons about cops and talking back. But you know, I grew up in a very blue collar neighborhood. Our across the street neighbors were police officers,
Right.
Both the husband and the wife. And so they worked for the New Orleans Police Department for a long time until they retired. So I definitely, knew about the cops and what not to do and things like that. Well, what about you?
Well, I've told a few stories about my run-ins with the law or dealing with cops, but there are a few more.
Okay.
So when I was in probably 10th grade, because I didn't have a car yet, I was in 10th grade. Me and two of my friends skipped school and went to. So my dad and my stepmom's house is literally in the neighborhood that was like right across the street from my high school.
Right.
So while I was in high school, at least until I was a junior, I would stay there, every other week or something like that, and I would be right by school, so I didn't have to go too far away. But I would either walk, or when I started driving, I drove. So we skipped school, and both of my parents worked, so they weren't home, and so we to me and to my friends, we went and hung out over at my dad's house, and then I forgot the reasoning why, but we decided to walk back to it's where the Purple Cow is now, but it used to be a Rite Aid.
Yes, that corner.
Yeah, it used to be a Rite Aid, and then right next door to that was a Del Champs. It was a grocery store.
Oh, Del Champs! Wow.
And
we had one of those.
I kind of had to rack my brain with the name of it. I was like, it's Del Champs.
Yeah, Del Champs.
Because I remember I would go in there before school, and I would get a donut, and I would get some chocolate milk.
Oh.
When I would walk to school. So we went to that Rite Aid, and it's a school day. It's in the middle of the day. We're obviously 15, 16 years old. So the guy that worked there was like said something. He was kind of, I'm gonna be completely honest, he was being kind of an asshole. I think personally, if I were my age now that I am now, and I saw 3 kids that were clearly skipping school, I'd just be like, y'all go have your fun. I would just be like, y'all enjoy your youth. But this guy, I guess, didn't feel the same way, and he kept asking us like, aren't you supposed to be in school? Aren't you supposed to be in school?
So
and
this was like some regular person.
this was the guy that worked in the register, the cashier.
Oh, okay.
And he just kept asking us, and so finally we were like, okay, we need to just like buy our and leave. And so we went and bought our and then we left. And then quite often, like directly behind that shopping center, there's like a little hill, and then there's like a little patch of like grass where there is, and we would kind of like sit there sometimes and hang out. And we were kind of hanging out over that. We had just left the Rite Aid, and we had gone behind the grocery store where that little area was. And then as we're sitting there, we see kind of like a cop roll through like the back of the grocery store. I mean, we were covered by like trees. You couldn't see us. So we were like, oh crap. And that was before those apartments were there too. So that was just
by the Regions?
That was just a field.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, I mean, plain as day. So we kind of waited until the cop was like kind of out of sight. And then we originally were going to hide out in the store in the drain tunnel, where I think I've showed you pictures of it before. It's where I always joke about like Pennywise and
yes.
and you know
I remember.
Oh yeah, and so we were gonna hide out there, but for some reason we decided not to. We were like, okay, we're close enough to my dad's house. Let's just like cut through backyards and maybe because we were just convinced that these cops were looking for us, and so we started walking, and then we were kind of going through backyards, and then there was someone that was in their backyards. We're like, shit, like we have to walk on the street, like we have to walk on the sidewalk. And so, I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like we start walking on the sidewalk, and we get to where the intersection is, where the library is, where that 4-way stop is. And as soon as we like go to that intersection, the cop just comes right to the right of us to that intersection, and then they kind of stopped and looked at us, and then we kind of like crossed the other street, or so we walked across like the other street going like up this way. I'm the opposite direction of where my dad's house is.
Gotcha.
And then as we were walking away, we hear the siren, and then we hear the cop over the intercom telling us to like stop what we're doing or stop in your tracks or something like that.
Stop in your tracks.
He said, hold on just a minute or something like that. It was very like an unofficial like stop.
Yeah, like y'all aren't doing anything bad. Yeah, but like
hold on just a second. And then like the siren came on, and it was these 2 cops, and they came out, and one was a man, one was a woman. And so this was my first real time like interacting with a cop when I was in trouble. I know there was that thing at the library, but I don't think if he was a cop, he was like a rent-a-cop. He was like a security guard.
Right.
He may have been an actual police officer, but like there was nothing.
He wasn't in a car.
No.
Like
to us, he was just like a security guard.
Yeah.
Even if he was an actual cop. But these were like cops. And so so these cops were like kind of talking to like, you know, where are you headed? We're like, oh, we're headed back to my dad's house. Like, where does your dad live? And of course I lied where my dad's house was. I was like, I'm not that dumb. I was just like, oh, up on, I named a random street.
Cottingham.
Yeah. Like I just named a random street like East Ridge or something like that. And up on East Ridge. And there's like, oh, okay, aren't you supposed to be in school? And we're just like, yeah, you know, we kind of like, I mean, what do you say to that? No, you know, like,
I'm 21, sir.
I'm 39. And so I mean, like, I'm honest. I remember I was shaking. I remember I was like shaking because this is the first time I've ever had a real run-in with a cop. And the lady was like trying to make it that I was shaking because we were like breaking the law or something like that. And I like flat out, she was like, why are you shaking, sir? And I'm like, honestly, I've never talked to a cop before. I was just like, I said that, and she kind of like, I think she was like trying not to laugh at me because she was like, this little punk, like this lily white punk. And so they kind of like, and then finally they kind of got out of us like how old we were. And since we were under 17, they took us to a place that I didn't know was real. They took us to the Truancy Center.
Oh, I was gonna say where, like Truant,
yeah,
like wherever,
the Truant holding cell. I mean, like, what was so annoying was that we were literally like, you know where that intersection is.
Oh,
it's
I know.
Like,
you
it's
were
like
three blocks.
We were there. We were one street over from my dad's house. They live right off of that street. And we were maybe like 3 houses away or something, like maybe 4 houses away. Had we just kept going down the behind the fences, the cop wouldn't have seen us, and we would have kept going, and it would have been our fun little. We got past the cop.
Who were
story.
you with? Just another friend? Or
I was with 2 of my friends.
Oh, okay.
One of them, it's Craig. One of them listens to the pod. So Craig, if you're listening, you remember. And then the other one is Joe. He's the one that lives up in Virginia with Brianna, and they have they have all the kids. So they brought us to the the truancy center, or whatever you want to call it, which I had only heard about a truant officer from Little Rascals episodes. So I didn't know that was like a real thing. And I remember my dad was the first one to come and like pick us up, because I think where they were was like right by my dad's work.
Oh, okay.
Because it was by Valley Park, and that's around where my dad's old job was. Well, he doesn't work there anymore. He's retired. And I remember, so my dad and Craig's parent, like my parents and Craig's parent, they already thought that we were like a bad combo with Tyler. The 3 of us. The 3 of us were a bad trio. We were bad influences on each other. And I will never forget, my dad was the first one to get there. Like I said, I think he was the closest one. And he just like stopped and like he just like stared at me, and it was like, my dad's not one to get angry. My dad's he got angry with us over the years. He got pissed off at us. I've told you stories. I've told stories on this pod. Tyler and I were monsters. I can only say it that way. We turned out great, but like we were both little terrors. We were monsters. It's the only word I can ever think of when I try to think of how I was as a teenager. I was terrible. I was like just so thoughtless and just so reckless. I mean, I guess you could say that about any teenager, but I was like supremely stupid. So my dad walks in, takes one look at me, like stares at me for a second, and and my dad also has a flair for the dramatics, and he also just, like father like son. And he like looked at me, looked at Craig. He was like, "Take a good look at each other. It's the last time y'all are ever gonna see each other."
I love it. It's always hilarious because I had that friend that my mom thought was bad.
Yeah.
And then I had friends who their parents thought I was the bad one. And I'm just like, none of us were like really bad.
No, we just kind of have those friends that you kind of egg each other on, and you kind of,
or you just happen to be the one that they're with when they get in trouble.
Right.
So they always feel like, oh, my angel could never have done this unless it was for Anna or whoever.
I was about to say, I was like, my parents never did that. My parents were like, "What did you do?"
Oh, my mom.
I mean, my parents knew that I was like deep down they knew that I was a good kid. They knew that I was a sweet kid and that I was very sensitive and stuff, but I just was dumb. I mean, it's the only word I can ever, dumb and a monster. That's the only two things.
What happened when your dad had to come and get you?
So my dad came and got me, and then I think in the back of Tyler's mind, he was like, "Thank God I don't go to school with y'all." Like, he was at Baton Rouge High at the time. This is before he transferred to Woodlawn. And so he was like, "Y'all are dumb." And so I don't remember what happened when like we I remember we had to go back to school. Obviously, we had to go back to school.
Oh wow!
And
so what time of the day was this?
This was like late morning.
Like
this was like
10:30.
This was like 10:30 in the morning. And another thing was, had we stayed at my dad's house, none of this would have happened. So I think we had to go back to school, and then the next day, the 3 of us got called into the principal's office or whatever, into the dean of students, and we kind of got a talking to. Luckily, we didn't get suspended. I think like getting picked up by the truant officer, that he was like, "That's enough." I think I had also gotten suspended earlier that year. That was when I came to school under the influence. So that was the same year. Yeah, 10th grade was rough. 10th grade was, I did a lot of dumb stuff.
I love your dad.
And
y'all are gonna see each other.
Take a good look at. I'll never forget, because like I said, like father like son, we both have a flair for the dramatics, and I can only imagine myself doing the same exact thing. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's one. That's another story. I know I've told more than one, and I know I have more in the chamber, but I was thinking more of like, since kind of how, not the opening, but then when we get to present day Tulsa, kind of something that happens. Are there any memorable times you've been pulled over?
I'm trying to think. Not really.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
nothing.
really trying to think. I mean, I've gotten, you were actually with me when I got pulled over for speeding in a school zone once.
Was your mom was in the car?
Yeah, we were
Yep,
going to bingo.
I remember.
It was a total school zone speed trap because there
Oh, yeah.
were like no signs. You just had to know that there was a school there and you shouldn't be speeding. And
Yeah.
it wasn't like the normal way we came. But anyway, yes, I got a ticket for speeding. But I definitely get it. I mean, when you were talking about your heart racing,
Yeah.
you really haven't done anything
Right.
really wrong. I mean, you haven't robbed anything or
Right.
stolen or murdered or hurt anyone. But just seeing the cop just brings the fear because,
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's a lot of TV shows and, like this is kind of one of them where you just don't know if cops are good, cops
Yeah.
are bad.
You don't know what you're going to get. Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I even remember in law school taking like criminal justice class. And one of the first lessons is if you're ever, arrested and you're taken to jail or whatever, call a lawyer. Like, don't start talking to the cops because there's always good cop, bad cop. And
Yeah.
they're always trying to like trip you up. You just are always on guard when you're
Yeah.
with a cop, whether or
Yeah.
not you're innocent or guilty or
Yeah.
whatever it might be.
Every run-in that I've ever had with a cop has been, there's always been this like kind of tone of, if I just say one wrong thing, this could really go
Oh yeah.
awry. This could really go bad. And I know that I have dealt with cops that, because I remember like, so when we got caught, when we got caught skipping school, story I was just telling, another, and police officers, y'all just love, no matter what the scenario is, y'all love to just all pull up and see what's going on. And
Oh yeah.
I think a second cop car came, and it was like it came from like the opposite direction. So I was like, oh, that was your tactic. And like they all came out, and I was just like, we are just teenagers that are skipping school, and they're making such. In my mind, I'm thinking like there have to be other things going on right now. Like, but maybe in the area that we lived in, the cops that were on duty didn't have anything going on in that moment, and maybe that was just their area that they were keeping on duty. Gonna be really honest, I lived in that neighborhood for a really long time. Never really saw cops driving around there. So I mean, like maybe unless they like lived in the neighborhood. To that, I'm just kind of like when they both like pulled in and the other two cops came in, I kind of noticed, I was like, all four of them were really different in how they talked to us. There was like one who was like trying to be the cool cop. There was one that
Yeah.
I'll never forget. It's funny. There are certain memories that are just locked into your brain. And this was my first real run-in with the cop. So I think that's why it's ingrained in my brain. And it was also kind of a funny later story telling about my dad and stuff. Love you, Lloyd.
Love you. I was about to say love you, Lloyd.
You're the best. Yeah, there was the one that was like trying to be the cool cop. There was one that was trying to be like the intimidating cop. You had the one cop that was like, you can tell that they were like trying to prove themselves to the other cops. And there was the other cop who just like did not fucking care. It was
They're
just,
probably like, why are we here?
yeah, there's just like, is it someone getting robbed that we can maybe go do, or
Some real crimes we
some
could
real
stop.
crimes. I lived right. We were right by Hoosh. We were right by Hoosh 2 Road. There are plenty of meth labs in that area. So I mean, like,
Well, and that's just it. It's like you just don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And so that to me is like, even just getting pulled over for speeding,
Mhm.
like my heart starts
Oh, yeah.
racing. And I'm like, I know, okay, I guess
Yeah.
I was speeding, but I know I've done nothing else
Yeah.
wrong.
I've been pulled over 3 times. 2 of them for speeding. One was a cop caught me with an expired inspection sticker, and that was also, he pulled me over, and he saw me, and he was at the Firestone, which was in the same parking lot of the Del Champs. However many decades later, So I'm like, I just can't cut a break. And then I also
Stay away from this corner.
that intersection on Jones Creek by the library. That's where I got into my first wreck.
Oh wow, you need to stay away from that.
Well,
area.
I don't go down there unless I have to go to the bank. So
or your dad's.
I don't even have to go that far. But yeah, so I've gotten pulled over for those reasons, and even then, like, my heart is racing because, like you said, you don't know what you're gonna get, you don't know what you're gonna deal with. Luckily, in those situations, I was just kind of able to give my information. There was no issue with any of that. But yeah, like, I think maybe the first time I got pulled over, like, he caught me for speeding. And he saw my ad. This was on Elliott Road, so this was like right before I got to my mom's house. So this was like I was maybe like a tenth of a mile. It is true what they say. All the accidents and stuff happen in the radius of your home. And he pulled me over, and he kind of saw where I lived, and I was going like it was like 56 and a 45. It was just like, and it was Elliott Road, so I'm just like, people fly down this road all the time. I know a teenager died on this road a couple years ago. Got to take it seriously. But I was sitting there just like, he almost didn't. I remember like he almost didn't give me a ticket, and he was just like, "No, you should. I should write your ticket." He said something like that. I'm like, just like,
yeah, that was like my last.
You could tell like
hammock.
You could tell he was like, I can probably catch someone going over 65 and give them a double ticket, but like,
I'll give you one.
Yeah, but he was just like, I'll give you one. No one's coming down here. You know, no one's driving down here. I remember I had like Subway in my car. I was like, I just got off school. I was so ready to like go home, eat my Subway. I was so mad. Yeah. But yeah, those are my run-ins with the law. If I ever think of any more, I'm sure we'll find a reason to talk about it.
Well, I have other good cop stories, but I'll admit, like, other than just being pulled over for speeding, I mean, I don't think I really have had any. I'm like really trying to rack my brain. I'm sure we'll do another story, Law and Order or something, and I'll pull something out of the bag.
Yeah. All right, ready to get into this pilot summary?
Let's do it.
Every single time, I think we're not going to have anything to talk about.
I know. We always find something.
All right. Watchmen pilot summary. In the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, a young Will Reeves is sitting in a movie theater and watches a silent film about a black lawman, Bass Reeves, when an air raid siren and explosions are heard outside. Will's father comes into the theater to retrieve the child and his mother, the theater's pianist. Outside, the family navigates through the unfolding Tulsa Race Massacre. So this isn't something that is taught in American history. And the fact that I think a lot of people didn't probably know about this until they watched this episode. If you don't know what the Tulsa Race Massacre is, I don't know it off the top of my head. I know that it started with a black man being accused of assaulting a white woman, and then that just ignited into he was going to be lynched, and then that ignited into this entire, Klansmen were coming out. I mean, people, random white men were being named deputies so they could enforce this. I mean, it was insane. There is no record of how many casualties and deaths there were. They have 36 recorded, I think, or 40 recorded, but like it could be upwards of like 800 people. They have no idea because they weren't keeping records of that back then because they probably didn't want people to know. So anyway, if you didn't learn about that, go look it up on Wikipedia because I just gave you a very quick summary of it. So outside the family navigates through the unfolding Tulsa Race Massacre, witnessing their neighborhood being razed and black citizens being publicly executed by a mob of Klansmen. The father gives Will a note reading, "Watch over this boy," and entrusted him with a black couple who are trying to flee Tulsa by car. Will is knocked out after seeing a biplane firebomb the building containing his parents. Will comes to after dark on the outskirts of the city and finds the black couple dead. He rescues a crying infant and walks away from the scene and tells the infant that she's going to be okay. That was just absolutely broke my heart.
Yes.
He starts walking with her, but turns around and sees the whole town in flames. That just, my heart was racing during that whole thing. Almost a century later, on September 8th, 2019, at 9:35 p.m., Tulsa police officer Charlie Sutton pulls over a pickup truck. The driver claims to be carrying lettuce, but Sutton notices a Rorschach mask that he has hidden in his glove box, indicating that he belongs to a white supremacist group called the 7th Cavalry. So maybe we have to dig more into the show. I don't remember Rorschach being a white supremacist in Watchmen, but I guess maybe I need to rewatch it. Maybe I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Sutton returns to his cruiser, patches himself through to the station, and has to ask a desk officer, Panda, to deactivate the maglock device that is keeping him from drawing his gun. That was stressing me out too.
Oh my God.
The time-consuming process gives the driver enough time to sneak out of his truck and fire machine gun rounds into Sutton through his windshield. Police Chief Judd Crawford is notified of the shooting while attending an all-black production of the musical Oklahoma. At the hospital where Sutton has been placed in intensive care, Judd and masked detective named Looking Glass speculate on why the cavalry would attack the police again after 3 years of peace. Judd goes to Sutton's house to inform his wife of the shooting. On a TV screen, it shows a breaking news segment of Dr. Manhattan on Mars. He seems to have built an elaborate life-size castle only to destroy it shortly after. The following day, local baker Angela Abar gives a presentation to Topher's class showing them how to make mooncakes. Ooh, mooncake sounds good. Taking questions from the students, Angela explains that she was born in Vietnam 2 years before it became a U.S. state and claims that she retired from the police force after being injured by the cavalry during the White Night. A confrontational question by a student named Tommy about whether Angela's business was subsidized with Redfordations, which he said incorrectly, provokes Topher to attack him. Later, Angela and Topher's drive home is interrupted when an abnormal storm causes small squids to rain down on Tulsa, Oklahoma. When they get home, Angela's husband Cal informs her that she has received a page bearing the code message Little Bighorn, a reference to the cavalry. Angela goes to her bakery where she has a brief encounter with now older Will Reeves, who cryptically asks her if he can lift 200 pounds. Inside the bakery, Angela gains access to a hidden room where she retrieves her police badge and dons the costume and weapons she uses for her masked identity, Sister Night. And boy, does she not! She looks like a freaking badass.
Oh yeah.
She drives a customized car to a slum-dubbed Nixonville, where she breaks into a seemingly random trailer and apprehends its occupant. Angela then drives to the police station, where a department-wide assembly is watching a video threat from the cavalry. Despite the protests of Panda, Judd evokes Article 4 and allows free use of firearms by the police for a 24-hour period. In Judd's office, Angela confronts him about not being immediately informed of the Sutton shooting and tells him that she has the trailer occupant in her trunk. The suspect is taken to a chamber called the Pod, where he is subjected to subliminal images while Looking Glass asks a barrage of questions, including whether he's involved with the cavalry. When Looking Glass states that the suspect is being deceptive, Angela forces him into a room and viciously beats him until he reveals that the cavalry's hideout is located at a cattle ranch. After nightfall, this is another scene that gave me a panic attack. After nightfall, Angela and the masked cop, Red Scare, infiltrate the ranch while Judd and another masked cop, Pirate Jenny, monitor the proceedings from a police-customized owl ship in the sky. Inside a trailer, members of the cavalry are collecting lithium watch batteries when an alarm tips them off to the police's presence. 2 cavalrymen attack the cops with a truck-mounted heavy machine gun, while several others attempt to escape aboard a single-engine aircraft. Angela manages to overpower the gunmen and enter the trailer, where she gets into a fight with a cavalryman who is revealed to be Charlie Sutton's assailant. However, the cavalryman swallows a cyanide capsule and dies before Angela can question him. Outside, Judd and Pirate Jenny pursue the cavalry aircraft and manage to destroy it with the owl ship's flamethrower, but debris causes the owl ship to violently crash, but Judd and Pirate Jenny survive. Elsewhere, in a remote country castle, the Lord of the Country Manor returns from horseback riding. He is then sitting naked at a typewriter while being attended by a maid, Miss Crookshanks. A butler, Phillips, presents him with a robe and states that he has a surprise gift prepared to mark his anniversary. Later, in the dining room, the manor's lord is presented with an ornate cake and a pocket watch that has been repaired by Mr. Phillips. He informs Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks that he has just completed a 5-act play titled The Watchmaker's Son, and tells them that they will be playing the leading roles. The 3 give a toast to the play. Judd and his wife Jane join the Abars for dinner. Judd briefly excuses himself and takes a hit of cocaine where the rest of the party cannot see him, but he is told to wipe the cocaine from his nose by Angela when he returns to the table. Jane reveals that Judd previously played Curly in his high school's production of Oklahoma, which leads Judd to giving an impromptu performance of the show tune, People Will Say We're in Love. After the dinner, Judd and Angela talk about the discovery of the watch batteries from the cavalry's hideout, made of a discontinued type of lithium that has been linked to cancer, which raises the possibility that the cavalry is trying to build a dirty bomb. Meanwhile, a commercial for the television series American Hero Story, Minutemen, is heard saying how the clock is ticking, we're running out of time, evil is rising, second by second, we all cry out. And while said commercial plays, it shows images of Hooded Justice, Captain Metropolis, Comedian, Mothman, Dollar Bill, Silk Spectre, and Night Owl, which are... Later that night, Judd receives a phone call that Sutton has woken up and is summoned away from home. On the way to the hospital, Judd's pickup hits a spike strip. Just as he realizes that he is about to be ambushed, Judd is confronted by a bright, rapidly flashing light. Meanwhile, Angela and Cal are having sex when she receives a mysterious phone call instructing her to drive to a remote oak tree where she will find something. Yeah, they were like having sex in the closet or something like that. They were like, I was just like, man, y'all got some locations. Angela retrieves a hidden shotgun and arms Cal before she leaves her house. Upon driving to the oak tree, Angela is confronted by the same bright light until she threatens to shoot. Before her, she sees Will from before, holding the note reading, "Watch over this boy," revealing him to be the child who escaped from the Tulsa Race Massacre. He sits next to Judd's body, which is hanging from the tree by a noose. End of episode.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I kind of had a feeling Don Johnson wasn't going to last very long. I just had a feeling in the back of my head. That, and I did remember watching this before, but I was like, yeah, he's not going to make it. So, yeah, I know we always say this, but like this is kind of one that it did even more appealing because it's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, that we have left.
And I kind of want to know what happens. And 11 Emmys and has a great IMDb rating. Clearly, it's a really good show.
Yeah.
So it's on Max. It's Watchmen. It's on Max. And I think the movie is also on Max. And I think there is a new animated series or movie called Watchmen.
And I think I would want to go and watch the movie too.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I never saw that
It's
one
not
either.
like, I think the reason why I like stuff like Watchmen is because it's not like a typical superhero. It's kind of offbeat. It's kind of off center. It's not like a Marvel movie. It's not like a Batman movie. It's very in its own We're dog sitting for Max, and he is just giving a grumble. He wants us to shut up.
He's snoring. He's snoozing.
He's so cute.
He is.
All right. So, yeah, go and watch Watchmen on Max if you haven't already. 9 episodes, super easy. And, I think that about wraps this one up.
Yeah. Good episode.
Well, that about wraps up this episode of We Judge a Show by its pilot. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow us on whichever platform you're listening to this podcast on. That way you'll be notified every time we publish a new episode. You can also follow us on Instagram at We Judge Pilot Pod. We're also on Facebook. You can leave us a comment, suggest a show for us to watch, or leave some emojis in the comments. What you got?
All right. I have a few. The cop in the cop car, the emoji with the mask on.
Gotcha.
The movie icon, like the theater or whatever, the note, the baby, any of like the fire or the explosions, the panda,
of course,
the hospital, the baker, the moon, and then the cake, squid, cattle, the pirate, the pill emoji, and
cyanide.
Poison for the cyanide. The horse, the watch emoji, and any of the men emoji for Watchmen, and then the bomb.
And then also the piano emoji, because the mom was the pianist for the theater at the very beginning.
Yeah. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. We're going to head out, but we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening.